Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Lunch and Learn powered by Acai Super Bowls. Acai Super Bowls is an official partner of the Badger Region. Look for Acai at all of the big Badger Region events, including the Dale Rohde Memorial, Badger Region Qualifier, and Badger Region Championships this season. I'm Brian Sharkey. I'm the Program and Communications Director for Badger Region, and we are excited to have an awesome panel today for our Lunch and Learn with staff members Sarah Voigt and Jen Armstrong-Dyer on the call today, and the amazing Dr. Jen Fry, who's going to be helping join us for some awesome conversation. So now that I'm hungry and hungry for some great conversation, Sarah and Jen, why don't we welcome Dr. Jen Fry to our panel and introduce one another.
Yay! So I'll go first. I'm Jen Armstrong-Dyer. I'm the Executive Director and Commissioner of Badger Region Volleyball. And obviously, Jen's going to get into her story, but she's in the volleyball community. I've known her for several years. But she has written an amazing book called I Said No. And the tagline's fine too. Sharky, sorry, I should have bought you one and sent it to you. You can borrow mine. Yeah, okay. But the tagline is how to have a backbone and boundaries without being a jerk. And so Sarah and I have 26 pages of notes on this book, and this is what this session is going to be about this. And so I am so excited to talk to Dr. Jen about this and just make sure that, we can all have these important conversations because that's what this is about. Sarah, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Voigt, Director of Officials and Youth Development here at Badger Region. I'm so excited to share with you guys about everything about this book. This book is me, like Dr. Jen, I can't tell you how many times I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I need to be doing. Oh my gosh, this is totally me. So I'm very excited to share this book with everyone on our Facebook Live today, ask some really important questions of Dr. Jen here, and hopefully spread the word about how great this book is and how, especially me in my role as Director of Officials, it has come into some really good use for me, Dr. Jen, already, and I'm excited to use some of it throughout the rest of my career. So welcome.
Thank you. I just appreciate you all having me here. And, it's interesting when you write a book, you're so deep in it, you don't know how people are going to react. And the thing, I say this, I guess, with naivety, I didn't realize like how deeply personal you have to get, right? You have to, the one thing I realized is when you're telling stories about other people in your life, you have to remember that part of the book is the only frame of reference they have for those humans. So how do you want that story to sit with people? How do you want that view of the person to sit with people? So it was a very interesting exercise in writing, not only about myself, but how I want the other humans in my life, dead or alive, to be thought about.
Mm-hmm. Now, how did you get to this place where you wrote this book? Can you kind of start and give us some background of your journey on how you got to here?
Yeah, so I'm a former college volleyball coach. I coached for about 15 years. I coached all over the U.S. I've lived everywhere. I coached at Washington State back when it was the Pac-10. Some people are like, it was a Pac-10. Back in the day it was. I coached in the Big Ten at Illinois in 2011 we played for a national championship. I've just been all over the place, and I left in 2015. I think now a lot of kids are expected to have a major and know exactly what they want to do in life. And I think it does a disservice to them because when you are so focused on this goal, you miss out on the other opportunities that could take you back to the goal or take you to something even better. And so I've been kind of lucky in the sense of I've been goalless, but that's allowed me to do amazing things. And I left in 2015. I thought I'd work on a campus. And a lot of people were just needing my help. And so somebody randomly said, you should look at becoming a speaker. And I was like, I didn't even know what a speaker was. And so I said, okay, let me build this as a skill set. Because a lot of people are like, it's kind of like when you mentioned you play volleyball. They're like, I'll go play you in the church league. And you're like, baby, that's not the same thing. And that's how it is when people ask me about being a speaker. They're like, how do I get paid in doing it? I'm like, you're not good. Like you have to train to be in front of 1,000 people, 100 people and keep their attention. And so I started doing that. I did a TED Talk in 2019. I ended up, another friend said, you have 2 masters. You can't get a third. You have to get a PhD. And so I ended up going to Michigan State and getting my PhD in sports geography. I'm probably one of the only sport geographers in the world. And I'm speaking all the time. I'm doing my dissertation, which was 403 pages. And people kept asking me about writing a book. And I'm like, I got this dissertation to finish. And so when I got finished with everything, a lot of people kept asking me about writing a book. And for me, whenever people talk about writing, it's always like, clear your space, light the incense, no, take away all notifications. I'm like, that's not the real world. So for me, I knew I wanted to write something. And so the way I did it was voice to text. So I am notorious for taking long drives, and I just would be sitting here driving, just going through chapters. And so I had all of my chapters in the note section. And so I had the goal of having it finished by December 31st, just a rough draft. And so that's kind of how I got it done, was a way that fit me. Because I think whenever you look at how all these people do like writing academies, it can make you feel guilty that you're not waking up at 4 a.m., right? You know how it is, Jen, in like master's and PhD program. Wake up at 4 a.m. before the kids are awake to get 2 hours of writing. Let me tell you what I'm not doing at 4 a.m. It's sitting there trying to peel open my computer and write for 2 hours. Like my mind isn't even functioning. But I said, what works for me? And so I'm actually in the process of writing a second book. I want to have a rough draft done by December 20, again, by the end.
Yep.
And I am going up to Detroit to go for a friend's event. And she was like, hey, they're canceling a lot of flights. And I literally said, I'll make the 7-hour drive because I got a few chapters I need to get out. And so I'm just going to do that if I have to, and just, talk into my phone. But for me, it's how do I do the things in a way that fits my life, not that is the way that other people do it. And so that's kind of how I came to writing this book.
No, I love that. And the staff knows very well my voice memos and long rambling. Hey, figure this out. This is the concept type situation.
Your journey of writing the book is literally a journey.
Yeah, 100%. Miles and miles, yeah.
Oh, that's funny. So
okay, I'm ready. We covered a couple questions already in that, Dr. Jen. So I'm going to bounce right away to some specifics, if that's okay. Let's talk about boundaries.
Yeah.
What are they? Why are they important? And who gets to set them?
That's a beautiful question. I think it's even more important as we come into the holiday season and this is a random question. Is my screen bouncing?
Nope.
Okay. Is it? Let me hold up my computer. And I say that because my dryer is going and my dryer is taking over the whole third floor. Like I did not realize or my washer, like I feel like my screen is like this. I'm like, it's my washing machine. This is embarrassing.
No, you're good. It's real life here on the Badger Region Facebook page.
I appreciate that. Okay, I think it's
Dr. Jen, as long as you drop an F-bomb like one of our former guests did, you are fine.
Okay, that's
You're live.
Good to know. So, okay, the washer's done. So it's as we're coming into the holiday season, I think we need to acknowledge that it's really hard to keep boundaries in holiday seasons because it's family members. And the way people push against our boundaries is this idea of we don't see each other much. You don't know how much longer they'll be alive. And so because of that, it makes it acceptable to pass over boundaries. And so boundaries are something that you set. It's not me telling you how you're going to act. It's me telling you how I'm going to act. Meaning, if we're in a conflict, it's not me saying, stop yelling at me, because that never goes well. I'm not yelling at you, right? That's never going to go well. A boundary is me saying, if you continue to raise your voice at me, we're not going to have this conversation. It's something that I am specifically responsible for, not what you're responsible for. Because if I tell you to stop yelling at me, I'm trying to make you do something versus me saying, if you continue with this thing, I'm not going to do it. Or it might be, I am agreeing to host Thanksgiving dinner at my house. I will not make the turkey. And if you expect me to make the turkey and all the sides, I will not host. I'm not telling you, I'm not saying you have to do this, you have to do that, but I'm saying this is what I'm agreeing to do. I'm agreeing to host. If you expect me to do A, B, and C, I will not host then. Okay. And so it's you putting those of what you are responsible for and what you're going to do. And so that's a really important thing to think about. The caveat I want to add to there is that one, people are habitual line steppers, right? People love a line dance. People love a line step. They'll be like 2 steps to the right. Now jump. Now jump. And they will keep doing that. And so when you set boundaries and you've never done it before, you have to understand that people will keep testing you. They will keep trying to test your boundaries. And because a lot of people, when they finally get up the courage to do that, they'll be like, I set the boundary for Brian and he didn't listen. I'm never doing it again. And it's like, when you've never done it before, you have to keep reinforcing the boundary. It's like, just because I tell you how to serve once doesn't mean I don't keep reinforcing toss, step, follow through. You have to keep reinforcing a boundary. And so a lot of people get frustrated. It's not the first boundary that's hard. It's the consistent setting of it and holding of it is really hard. Because when you have never set a boundary before, people will badger you to death to try and force you to not have it. And so that's what you have to be prepared for, is you have to be prepared for the emotional shrapnel of setting a boundary and people being really upset and trying to find ways to circumvent your boundary. And so that's the hard part, is the holding of it and being okay with emotional shrapnel.
No, I love that. And you wrote in the book, boundaries are about protecting your peace. They aren't about keeping someone out. They are about creating healthy frameworks for people to come in.
Yeah.
And I love that. And so, okay, we got Thanksgiving, we got Christmas. What about the professional setting? Because sometimes you can't just remove people or not allow them in.
Yeah.
How do you deal with boundaries in a professional setting?
It's the same way. You say what you're willing to do and you hold on to that, right? It might be, hey, Jen, I understand you want me to do this thing. If you want me to do this thing, what other thing do you want me taking off my plate? Mm-hmm. It might be, I can do this thing, but I won't be able to do it for 2 months. And you really stick to what you can do. And I think one of the things that people get frustrated about is that they don't respect time when setting their boundaries. And so say, for instance, if I know I can't do it for 2 months, I might be like, well, maybe I can, hopefully. And I say all this language to give you hope. And the worst thing you can give anyone in any situation is hope. You don't want to give hope. Because you will say, I am so backed up with everything I have to do. I don't know if I can do one thing else. Maybe I can do this. And they will ignore everything else you said and live and die on that maybe. Mm-hmm. And so for you, of being very strong with your language, to say, I can do it, but not for 2 months. I'd love to talk to you, but please don't schedule a time until after November 15th. Mm-hmm. And then, so my boundary was, don't schedule a time until after November 15th. And if you do that, I'm going to decline that message, right? Like I had that situation happen. I told someone, hey, look at like December 9th and 10th. And they found the one thing with your calendar, if there's one little pocket of time open, they are going to find that pocket every single time, even if I told you other days. And so he scheduled on that one pocket and I just canceled the meeting. I said, I need some breath in this area. Go look at the 9th and 10th. And so being willing to do that, because sometimes people will be like, well, I have the time, and all that, versus no, I told you this, I'm going to stick to that. And so you have to be willing to put those up in the workplace, wherever, and hold to it. Even though people might get upset or frustrated, it's okay, because you know yourself and what your bandwidth is. And if you don't start paying attention to your bandwidth, you're going to be burnt out and not able to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of branching off of that, setting boundaries, it can be uncomfortable, right? So how does discomfort play a key role in boundary setting? Because I'm guilty of that. I'm really terrible with boundaries. And it's uncomfortable. And how do you blend that into not being uncomfortable or get through that?
So I think there's a few things. I think the first thing is you need to acknowledge it's just going to be uncomfortable. And you're going to have different levels of uncomfortableness with different people. It might be really uncomfortable with your mom, who you've never done this before with. And it might not be as uncomfortable with a friend or a favorite coworker, but it might be with a boss, someone who pays your check. So there's going to be different levels of uncomfortableness, and just acknowledging that. I think so many times people think that when they start out doing that, that it's not going to be uncomfortable. And it is, because you're learning. I think the first thing when it comes to that is you have to set boundaries early, because if you wait, people will get pissed off, and it's rightfully so, right? If it's maybe there's an event in 2 months, instead of you saying 2 months out, hey, I can't do this, you wait until it's 2 weeks out. And then now you're saying you can't do that. Well, the problem is that you were dependent on. You kind of gave the assumption you'd be able to be there. And so be willing to set things early to allow people time and space. And like, there have been times where I'll acknowledge, like, I know this sucks. I know this is hard. And it still has to be done. So I'll admit how it's going to feel. But it doesn't mean I don't do it. And I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. I still get nervous. I still get anxious, and sending the text or calling, you're still going to have those feelings. You're human. And I think people have the idea of when you start getting good at it, you're not going to have feelings. You're still going to have feelings. You don't want to disappoint people. You don't want to hurt people. It makes sense. And you have to be able to and willing to admit your bandwidth. And that, like, I don't have the time. I don't have the commitment. Or it could be that you're like, hey, I can't help you in this full capacity, but I can help you in this and this, right? Mm-hmm. I can't host at my house, but what I can do to help you out is to bring 3 sides. Or I can help you find a facility, right? Like, figure out ways that you can also compromise and meet in the middle to maybe help the situation out.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to jump down to question 13, so knock that one off, Sarah. But we also have
everyone to know that there's like 50 questions.
There is. We're not going to get through them all today. There's like 3 pages. So it's fine. I was going through and making a lot of questions that I wanted to know about, so hopefully everybody else wants to know about it too. Okay, so in the book on page 73, you said there's very little someone else, especially an adult, is forced to do. And I think that kind of goes to what you were just talking about. So talk about that and why it's generally about conflict avoidance, and how we give our power away without realizing it and saying, I care about you, but I also care about me too. Kind of talk about that whole just conflict avoidance.
I pay a lot of attention to language, and I hear a lot of language around people who are like, well, they're just forcing me to do it. And my thing is that in this day and age, at our age, no one's forcing you to do anything. No one is forcing you to host Thanksgiving dinner. No one is. And I think a lot of people use that language because they don't want to be responsible for the outcome. They don't want to be responsible for the decision. Because if I'm just saying I'm being forced, well, there's nothing I can do about it. But the reality is you're not being forced. No one is holding you hostage and waterboarding you and like, you better make this turkey and cranberry sauce. You better make the stuffing. That's not happening. You are an integral part of it. And so when you say that you're being forced, you're taking yourself and your decision making out. And that 100% is conflict avoidant. Well, the family's just forcing me to have it at my house. How are they forcing you to clean and cook and set up tables at your own house? That's nonsensical. And so we use that when we don't want to be responsible for the decision. Because the reality is they're not forcing you. You are willingly doing it. And it sucks. And it's uncomfortable to admit it. But you're willing to do it. Because you don't want to deal with, again, emotional shrapnel of your parents being upset, your family members, of the one sibling being like, oh, I've already hosted. How are you not going to host? That's not right, right? Everyone's going to have a word. And the one word that a lot of people like to weaponize, especially with women, is the word selfish. Mm-hmm. They will use selfish against you so much because even if think about when kids are playing and someone has a toy and another kid comes over, the immediate response is you need to share. Well, why? Why can't they just enjoy playing with the toy and then give it off? Why is it when someone else immediately comes in the picture, we have to share? And if you're not sharing, you're being selfish. And to be okay with if someone's like, how could you not host Thanksgiving dinner? You're being selfish. You're right, I am. I am absolutely being selfish, and I'm okay with that. And leaving it at that, because people will use that word to try and force you to do stuff. And so I think it's important that when somebody uses the words I'm being forced, to push back and say, you're not being forced. You're making a decision. Your decision is to do the thing, but you're not in any way, shape, or form being forced to do it. You just don't want to buck up against tradition. You don't want to buck up against your family members. You don't, because you're not just telling, say, your mom that you're not going to cook Thanksgiving dinner, because guess what? You tell your mom, I'm not going to host Thanksgiving dinner. Right away, you get the text from your siblings, the phone calls. How are you not going to do it? Why did you do it? You never know how long our parents are going to be alive. And then you get comments from your aunts and uncles. Why don't you just host? It will make your mom feel good. You know your mom hasn't been right. And like you get all of this barrage of people trying to badger you into doing it. You're just being selfish. We haven't hosted at your house yet. All of that's going to happen in order to make you fall and just say, I'm just being forced to do it. And it can feel like you're being forced with all the voices, but you're not being forced. You have autonomy to say no. You are a grown-up. Even if you're saying no is, on Tuesday, I am locking my door and I will be on vacation. No one can get in my house. Even if you do that to start out, do that.
You guys, I'm bouncing back to question 8. I really like this. The word assertiveness can have negative connotations, Dr. Jen, especially with women in marginalized communities. Can you talk more about how assertiveness is actually a really good thing?
Yeah, assertiveness. Here's the thing about it is that many people don't teach assertiveness. All they know is aggression. And so all they know is aggression. Anytime you stand up for yourself, it's deemed to them aggressive. And that's a huge issue. So if, say, you're in a meeting and someone says something, you're like, well, I'd like to push back on it. Wow, Jen, you're being really aggressive. And it's like, no, I wasn't. I'm just pushing back on your comment. And so what I like to tell people when I facilitate is you have to understand the difference between assertiveness and aggression. You have to understand what those differences look like, what they feel like, what they taste like, in order to differentiate. Because if you can't differentiate, other people will do it for you. And it will tend to be aggressive. And so what I mean by differentiating is that you have to, a lot of this work when we talk about boundaries and conflict and self-advocacy, is that you have to be very in tune with yourself. And what I mean by that is you need to start paying attention to, what does aggression look like for you? What does it feel like to you? And for some people, it might be, aggression means that whenever I'm aggressive, I'm screaming, I'm cussing, I am out of control with my body movement, right? I like crazy eyes. I am like, I have to do something right now. There's an immediate need for response. I want to, if the person's in front of me, I want to get close to them with the body, right? Like all of these things that would be viewed as aggression. So now, whenever you're in moments and that happens, you can understand like you are acting aggressive, and then be like, man, I was really aggressive in that. I need to dial it back. If you're on the phone call with someone and like a customer service agent, how you interact with them, the level of aggression you use. And when you understand that, then you can look at, what does assertive you look like? For me, assertive me means I am looking you dead in the eye. I am understanding your perspective, but I'm repeating the importance of mine. Meaning, I understand that it's Tuesday and you missed the deadline, so we need to have that in. I understand, but this is what we need. And my voice is monotone. I'm looking you in the eye. I have a distance if it's body-wise, right? I've created space. I'm not closing in to kind of intimidate you with my body. I am just repeating the thing that I need to have done. I understand that we don't have that box. So what solution are we going to come to make sure that this can happen? Versus, why don't you have that box? I can't believe you. Like, that's a difference. Me being like, we're going to have to come to a medium to fix this solution. And so my voice is very moderate and my words are very moderate. I'm being very deliberate with what I'm saying. And so we don't teach those things. And so many people, if they've never grown up with assertiveness, all they view assertiveness is as aggression. That's all they view it as. Because if you've never seen your mom push back with assertiveness, all you've seen her do is yell and cuss and scream. Well, that's the only thing that you know. And so many times in marginalized communities, when we're talking, interacting, we're passionate, we're loud, right? We might be hitting on stuff, but like that's just us being passionate. But if you've never seen that, because one thing we don't realize is I want people listening to think about the volume in the house that they were raised in. Meaning, was this a household where everyone was quiet? There was no raising of voices. If there was, it was like really big arguments. But other than that, everything was quiet. You might laugh, but it's going to be kind of contained. Then there's Italian families where everything is really passionate and right, and they're just talking to each other. I think about when Black people get around for a cards game. We are yelling, we're slamming the cards, we're pointing fingers, but it's just fun and games. And depending on the type of household you grew up in, if you're at a table with people slamming cards, threatening, right? Like you are going to be sitting there saying, this is a really aggressive area when it's not. And then what happens is that you could put yourself in the middle and be like, whoa, 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 this is a little aggressive. And everyone's like, what are you talking about? We're just having fun. But because you were raised where the only type of aggression is loud voices, you don't know anything else with loud voices. And I see that a lot. It will be in a meeting, two people are just passionate about a topic, but someone's not used to that and they get uncomfortable. And instead of them stepping back and saying, what about this is making me feel this way? What about how I've interacted? They want to stop it immediately. And I call them the jumper inner. So they see two people who are just arguing and it's not bad. They're just arguing about something. Whoa, we need to stop this. And then you're silencing two people who may have been getting to a really good idea because you're not comfortable with that type of conversation or grappling over of ideas. And so I say that to say is that people need to understand, what does assertiveness look like? What does aggression look like? So that they can understand when an athlete's coming up to them, the athlete's just being assertive. Or one thing we need to know is that youth sports is going to be the battleground for kids figuring themselves out. Mm-hmm. And a lot of coaches take offense. And meaning, if a kid comes up and they're like, can you explain the drill or can you explain something? You don't need explanation, just do the drill. Because they can't handle kids asking questions and testing it out. So it could even be to the point where you might say, Jen, I understand you're frustrated, but that's not the way we're going to have the conversation. So I understand it. Why don't you figure out how you want to have the conversation, come back and we can talk about it. But we're not going to talk that way. And I get it's hard. And some coaches can't do that. They take a kid, this kid's got an attitude, they're disrespectful. How could they? We are teaching them how to pass, how to set, how to hit. We're also teaching them how to advocate for themselves. So if I'm in the gym in practice and I'm telling them I want them to swing hard and high, they're going to hit balls out as they're learning that skill. And I'm preparing them for the game. Same thing with learning how to be assertive. Same thing how to look at how to advocate for themselves, is that they have to test it out to figure out the best way to do it.
Dr. Jen, can I branch on this? We're going off script, guys. So I'm, director of officials, and one thing I'm focusing on this year is what you just spoke about. During a match, it's emotional. Yeah, it's emotional for everyone. Everyone's excited. So building the confidence of those youth athletes or captains to go up to a official, okay, and ask a question. I'm trying to educate the officials on. The question may come out wrong. It may come out aggressive. It may come out emotional. But our job as officials is to help empower those kids and listen and respond appropriately, but not defensively, assuming they're coming off aggressive. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think this is so important, Dr. Jen, for everyone, is that we need to look deeper into it rather than taking it for surface level on it's not aggressive. We need to understand and adapt a little bit more to that. Does that make sense?
It does. And I can't remember the video I was watching. And I think it was a boys game. And let me also premise, I might be the only one. I like when kids nip at each other across the net. I know this is youth sports. Because I like kids who want to be confident.
I
I'm
like
okay
chippy.
with some-
I like it. I like a little bit of a chip too. I really do.
like, okay, y'all, but here's my thing. If you're gonna chip at one another, you better back it up. Don't sit here and chip at someone, you get roofed. Like, nah, you better back it up. You better swing and get something. And I'm okay with like that chippiness. I think in some respects, I think we are very like genteel with our sport, and we want to cut it so fast that in a way we like stop with confidence building, because a kid might turn and look and we're like, tweet, tweet, tweet. And it's like, we don't need to card, or we don't need to do things so fast. Like other sports allow more of a maturation of the experience. And we are like, we have to cut it. We have to keep control. We have to do that. And I think there's some space that we can give. But there is a video, and I think maybe some kids got chirpy, and it was the bench. I think there was probably like some call, and then the bench was like, come on. And one of the refs was like, pretty much like, I would card the bench immediately. And I was like, that's a big jump. That to me is over. and referees, I was a ref for 10 years. And I was that chippy coach. So funny story, a lot of the referees who ref me in college, I also refed with. And they had to deal with my mouth. And I probably got carded so much. One of them, Heather, she refed me, and we knew each other. And she had this game where she even admitted it. She was on NyQuil. She was horrible. Like the ball would go, and then she would be, and she just did bad. And so I come up, and we end up losing. Like we also played bad. And I come up to her, and she was like, Jen, I know I did bad. You don't have to come up and tell me anything. I was like, honestly, Heather, my car broke down. Can I just get a ride to my house? And and it was like the funniest thing. But like referees gave me some space. Like it's emotional. Like the bench is going to be like this. And this idea of so much control, like we have to question, why do we need so much control? And like I said, refs, y'all can at me. I'm cool with the conversation. But I think we need to really revisit that. Just because it says it in the rule book doesn't mean we need to immediately in this emotional moment have control. Now we can be like, tweet, tweet. We can do that. We can have that conversation. But I think when the kids are coming up to ask us questions, we have to remember the situation. It's an emotional time. Kids are really not taught to advocate for themselves. And they have to go talk to you up on the stand. So
That's scary.
You're like this. Can I help you? Right? Like that's super scary to them. And we have to take that all in context. Yeah. A 12 or 13-year-old who is going up to ask a question that can change the dynamic of the game because one of the problems I have is I see a lot of parents who are like, we'll wait to self-advocating until they're like 12 or 13, right? Or no, until they're 15 or 16. I'm like, that's too late. We got to start them at 9, 10, 11. Because like you said, they have to go up to this ref stand and advocate for the whole team, for the coach, for a really hard moment that the game is on the line. And if they don't ask this question correctly, they can lose. That is so much going on to an 11-year-old or a 12-year-old. And we have to be cognizant of that. Meaning, if a kid comes over and they're emotional or they say it wrong, give them a second. Like, hey, I get it. It's a hard moment. Just take a second to breathe. And because refs, you are in charge. You can control the time. It doesn't need to be that everything asked in 2 seconds or no. You can control the time and say, hey, take a deep breath. Why don't you rephrase that question? And you are giving them the time and space versus, no, it wasn't asked correctly. Tweet. And that's it. Because referees, your job is also to train these athletes. Because I guarantee if you are very short with this 11-year-old, baby, that 11-year-old is about to be your down ref. And guess what? You are going to need them when the game is on the line. And you got these two Spitfire coaches that are eating your butt alive. And you're going to need that 12-year-old. The one you just pretty much negated. Now that net is bobbing and weaving. And you're looking at that 11-year-old being like, please, God, It's me, God, Judy, or whatever it was. Like, I need some help right now. And that 12-year-old who you were like, hey, we got time. What's your question? Here's the answer. This is why I'm saying this. And then the moment isn't as scary for them now. When you're calling them over, you already have a good rapport. And so then you're like, hey, what'd you see with that net? Did you see number 12 hit it first? Did you see that? And now you have a better rapport, because that's what happens is the team that just played, especially if they just lost and they lost off of that question. And now they're about to be your ref team. So you got this little kid that you done just lit a fire under, and now she's about to be your ref team. You're going to need help. You are going to need a lot of help. So we have to think about the totality of the picture of, as a ref, bend your knees. I know the knees hurt. It's your 5th match. Your knees are hurting. Your feet are sore. But try and come down to that level so that you can be looking them versus like, what? Right? Like, give space to thinking, and this might seem selfish, even if it's for self-preservation, baby. Even if it's like, I know the losing team is my ref team and I'm going to need some help. Even if it's for self-preservation, think more about that experience for that kid advocating for themselves.
And Dr. Jen, I think it also goes beyond officials. This sort of space that you have to allow people is club director to coach, coach to parent, coach to player, all of these relationships. And I base all of my coaching on relationships and building connections with people. And you never want to lose an opportunity to build a connection. And, I just want to ask, why was Dr. Jen getting so aggressive right now? But I know she wasn't aggressive. She was just emotional
passionate
about it.
Yeah, 100%.
It's awesome. So you really all about just making sure that that player can connect with the ref, I think. And, those coaches connect with their club director or the parents or whoever, and building things off of that to make the situation or the understanding of the situation better.
Oh my God. There's so many places I want to go from here.
This made me, that part of this conversation made me so happy, Dr. Jen. I enjoyed that so much. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Jen, your turn, Jen.
No, it's so true, but because it's about, we all get so angry and passionate. And when I get upset, I cry. And I know about that about myself. And I've stopped apologizing because it's just who I am. It's my superpower of being authentic and transparent. But sometimes people say, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. Talk about how that doesn't absolve them from this responsibility of their words, and how that may not create a collaborative environment.
Yeah. So can I just hit on this question for Cindy and jump onto that? So Cindy asks, I so agree with that we officials do shut down the players down immediately between the net. At what point would you shut down the chirping if not right away? I would see how it plays out. Because, and so this is a good question. So this is kind of a weird statement to say. Excuse me. You have to figure out, what is your chirpometer? What is the chirpometer meaning? And I just thought of that. But like, think about your chirpometer. If there are 2 players, first off, the higher level, we're going to see some chirping. If they've played with each other before, if they played against each other before, if they have been in hot contested gold medal matches, like, think about contextually who the teams are, because we start to know them. And so I think, first off, when we think about the chirpometer, think about those things. It's a gold medal match. These teams have played last year. They played against each other. It went 3, or depending on if you're at high performance, it went 5. It was like back and forth. The kids play with each other, right? The coaches, and y'all, this is all real life. The coach left that club because he wanted to start his own club. So they got beef. Like, think about, in some of those instances, what the context is. The second thing of your chirpometer is, think about what's a 1 and what's a 10, right? A 10 is they're coming under the net. Think about that. A 1 is, they block and they just turn and look, but keep going. Okay, right? Then maybe is it that the chirpometer, as we move forward on it, it's the block and they just tear and they stare and they're maybe like this, right? Like think about the levels to it. And at what level is it that, okay, this, and when I think about the level, I'm also thinking about potential physical violence, right? Like what are the words that are being said? Thinking about that stuff on the triple meter. And once it gets to this level, this is when I'm going to bring them in and say, hey, y'all, I understand y'all have played against each other, blah, 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 blah. But now it's starting to get a little out of hand. And when I say that, I'm saying the behaviors that are attached to it. Like, I don't care if y'all stare each other down. That's not it. But where I do start to care is that you start pointing at each other. And you mentioned those specific behaviors, because the one thing I don't want is you as a referee, you have had this hard line. And then it gets to the game is just intense. Like crap talking happens when the game is intense. That's a normal, we want that. We want our athletes to be doing that. Think about, I don't know about y'all, but the amount of like Michael Jordan and Kobe moments I watch of like intensity when they're staring at people, when Kobe or Michael would like stick his tongue out, right? Like all of these moments in the game that bring you to your feet and are like, it more intense. And so thinking about that, of you don't want to be that you've had this hard line and the game is just intense and you feel that they just stared too long and you red card someone, right? Like you don't want to be the person that ended the game because you had such a hard line when all they were doing was chirping at each other because of the intensity and the moment of the game. So you have to think, Cindy, if I have a 1 to 10 triple meter, where am I falling? Where I'm just bringing the captains in. I'm like, hey, these behaviors are getting to be a little too much. Like, I don't care if y'all like stare at each other, but like when you start pointing and taunting, right? When you start taunting, and what does taunting look like? And let me also premise, I was one of the biggest crap talkers when I played. The way your girl talked to people, especially when I was on the side that the R1 wasn't there, the stuff I would say under my shirt, the stuff I'd say behind, like surprise, was a big crap talker. And you have to understand the context of it, your triple meter, what are the behaviors attached to it, that when they start taunting and some of the words that they say, then that's when we need to bring the captains in and say, hey, these behaviors are getting to be just a little too much. And I don't want to be responsible for having to put a red card up because you got out of hand. So you're naming it, you're giving the parameter, your boundaries about what's acceptable, but you're letting them know versus being the one. Man, I'd hate for you to be the person that gets blown up because you decide to card because of the moment. Mm-hmm. And what was the thing, Jen, that you asked? I'm sorry.
No. And it goes around with it. It's just the environment of fear and collaboration when someone uses the words, I'm going to be brutally honest.
Oh yeah.
Talk about that.
Here's the thing. And when I was young, I would be responsible for saying that. We don't need to be brutally honest. We can be empathetically honest. And that's why I try and live by. Like, why? If I'm brutally honest, it means I don't really care about your feelings. Like, I'm just going to say whatever I want to say. And many times people are they're not going to receive that well, you being brutally honest. Now I try and be empathetically honest. Like, I think about the words that I try and use. I think about the context I bring to the table. But I think when people use the term brutally honest, it stops them from, in a way, thinking about the humanity of the person you're talking to. I'm just gonna be brutally honest with you. And it's kind of like, I think about that in the same frame I think about when people want to use devil's advocate. Because people will use that as a way to say whatever they want. But like, well, I don't believe that. I'm just playing devil's advocate. And it's like, no, you're using it to say really problematic things. And so I think when we talk about that is to say, like, why do I have to be brutal? Can I take a second to be empathetic? If I really want this behavior to change, if I want them to think about what's going on, being brutally honest never helps anyone. It makes you feel better because you're able to say the thing the way you wanted to without thought. But like, we can be a little bit more empathetic about the situation.
So many things. Go ahead, Sarah. Where do you want to go now?
Okay, yeah, I lost track. So we're gonna just kind of bounce here. Hold on here. He okay, let's talk about brutally honest and branch off of that. How how would you react when in a situation where someone is using or weaponizing words against someone? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I think the thing about it is that people use a lot of strong language for very medium situations. And when people use strong language, I feel like it is a weapon in some ways. Like in the volleyball moms group, there's a woman who said, so her daughter was trying to sub in, and I guess the girl maybe didn't come to the line, and she called that girl a bully and said, my daughter's being bullied because the other girl isn't trying to sub out. And I said, bully? I named it. I said, that's a really strong word. I said, your daughter should be going, again, this is like the kind of the victim aspect of I was being forced, but the other way of like, you should be going to the line and being like, hey, Sarah, I'm here for you. Like, you should be doing that, not just sitting waiting for the girl to come to the line. And I was like, that's not being a bully. That's your daughter not going up to do her job. But like people will use, my daughter's distraught, she is destroyed, right? Like these really heavy words. And I'm like, the situation isn't, that's not the situation. Because if you're using words that are so high, it's really hard to pull the situation down. And so I really want people to think about like the words that they're used to base the situation and how it can be weaponized against people. We see it a lot with coaches of like, this coach is manipulating my kid. This coach is being a bully, like really heavy words. And for me, I always say, what are the behaviors? Mm-hmm. You should be able to name the behaviors that is affecting your kid. What are, because then if you sit here and say, you know, Coach Sarah is manipulating my kid, and I say, well, what are the behaviors? I don't know. She just is. How can I go to Coach Sarah and be like, hey, here are the behaviors that we need fixed? But if there's no behaviors, I can't fix anything. But what then I do is I put Coach Sarah on eggshells. Hey, I just want to let you know, a parent came up to me and told me that you were manipulating their kid. What am I supposed to do with that information? Because many times the parent will say it and be like, but don't, just leave it anonymous. Yep. Don't say it was from me. So I'm dropping a bomb on someone. I'm giving them zero context. I'm giving them zero situation, zero, like they know nothing. All I'm saying is that they're manipulating a kid. Imagine how that makes them feel and what they're supposed to do with it. So now they're going to feel like they're walking on eggshells with every aspect of that kid. And so I say that of kind of going into the word aspect is that we should not be taking anonymous feedback, and we should not be giving anonymous feedback. So if a parent comes up and they're like, hey, can you Coach Sarah is manipulating people, but don't say it came from me. I would then say respectfully, I'm not telling Coach Sarah that. We don't do anonymous here. They deserve to know the situation. And because the problem is that we're then feeding off of one person. Mm-hmm. And that's a really hard thing to do. And so just say, we don't do anonymous feedback. We need to explain the whole situation, because many times when the whole situation is told, it's not what it seems. Going back to the parent who said that their kid was being bullied. If you come in and you're like, hey, I want to say that my kid's being bullied by Sarah. Those are strong words. So then as a coach or administrator, you have to act on bullying. Mm-hmm. But then if you hear the whole situation that she's being bullied because the girl didn't come up to the line immediately, well, that's going to change the whole conversation. And that's why we can't do anonymous. And also what people will do then is you'll just be a sucker, because they will use you for all the anonymous. Baby, I don't have to talk to the coach at all. I can just keep going to the club director and give all my feedback. Man, you are a sucker for that. No, we don't do anonymous. People have a right to know what it is that they need to fix and what behaviors it is. And if you can't give me behaviors, then I can't follow through with this. I can't.
I love your cat's paw right now. It's just hysterical.
Pickle is just, yeah, Pickle is all over the place right now.
It's so funny. So words matter, and we just talked about that too. But let's talk about words: emotional, aggressive, difficult, especially when they're attached to women,
100%.
because it happens all the time. Can you talk about how these words are preemptive strikes?
Yeah, they are, because they're meant to silence you. If I call you, and also it's about reclaiming words, right? The reclaiming of the word. And so when I'm in conversation, and very rarely do I yell. Like, you have to get me, I don't even know, to actually yell. Most times I'm pretty monotone with it. And people, when you're monotone and pushing on folks, that's when you'll see the word aggressive come out, right? And you're just pushing because you want something solved, you need a decision, and they'll come out as being aggressive, they'll say. And so I'm just like, okay, I'm aggressive, so can we move on? Because we need this solved. Like, okay. Like, but a lot of people, they'll hold it and they'll be like, they call me aggressive. And then they'll go the polar opposite and try and do anything that makes them not seem like it, right? Like when people call women difficult, the question should always be, what behaviors am I doing that's making me difficult to work with? What behaviors? Anytime anyone uses those words, what behaviors? Make them name the behaviors, because that's what you want. If you are being difficult, they'll be able to name them, right? Maybe they'll say, we're working on this project and you take 3 days to answer every email. That's making it very difficult. They're giving you specific behaviors. So now you know which stuff to solve. But if they don't do that, you just say, I'm being difficult. Well, the problem is that then I can get a rep for that. Then people are going to put that in my performance review. But there was never a behavior. And so really asking for behaviors, I think, is important. I think it's almost like you can check a box. Whenever some people feel defensive, they'll be like, she's aggressive. Okay, that didn't work. She's difficult. Didn't work. She's emotional. That didn't work. And then to ask, like, well, what do you mean I'm being emotional? Because what people like to do is they like to try and have this line in the sand between logical and emotional. And you can only be one or the other. I can be logical and still have feelings about the situation. And so really getting people to, like, what do you mean I'm being emotional? What does that mean? And having people have to answer. I think so many times we hear a word and we just want to stop because we're so afraid of it, versus saying, well, what do you mean I'm being emotional? Mm-hmm. What does that look like? And so then that way, when it's named, the behaviors, it might be you're emotional after you get hard news, you slam your door, you slam your hands on the table, right? Like they might say certain things. You're like, okay, I can see that behavior. But I think it's really important to take a pause when you hear the word and not then try and be the polar opposite of it, but to name it so that you can hear the behaviors.
I'm unmuting. I'm going to shift a little bit to hard moments or hard decisions. Can you explain what they are and why people confuse the two?
Yeah, I think sometimes a moment can just be really hard. Like it can be, the moment's hard is that we're down 0-2. That's a hard moment. A hard decision is, do we switch setters? That's a hard decision. And I think people conflate the two of like, the moment can just be hard, but it doesn't mean that there has to be a hard decision that has to be made. The moment's just really hard. Versus you have to make a very hard decision and the thoughts that have to go into that and the effects of that decision. Like I said, the moments we're down 0-2. The hard decision is, are we flipping the setters? Are we subbing the setters out? Are we switching liberos? That's a really hard decision. Do we want to stay with our libero because we know that they have a tendency to ebb and flow and they really hit it when the game matters? Or are we taking them out because we just don't think they're going to work? So really kind of having the understanding of sometimes you're just in a hard moment, and that's okay. And feel that hard moment. The hard moment will go. The one thing I've realized is that sometimes, like a hard decision, you just need 20 or 30 seconds of insane courage. But it doesn't mean that the moment it's hard. It's just you have to make a really hard decision and sit with that hard decision, knowing that if I make it this other way, there can be really big repercussions. But sometimes it's just a hard moment you have to navigate through. And there's no real decisions that you have to make. You just have to navigate through a hard moment.
Mm-hmm. You write in the book, anxiety is overestimating the problem and underestimating your ability to deal with it. And I feel like that ties into that discussion too, because sometimes we have those hard decisions to make and you're like, I can't do this. I can't do this. Well, yes, you actually can. Can you talk about just that quote that you put down?
I can't remember where I heard that quote from, but that quote kind of changed my life because I have 2 companies. I'm just anxious. And it really helped me kind of think about my anxiety in a different way, because it really, many times when we're anxious, it's because we don't have the skill. We think we don't have the skill set to handle the situation. And in reality, we do. It's hard, it's ugly, it's messy, but we have the skill set to do it. And so it really helped me to say, okay, I am anxious and I've made this situation seem bigger or harder than it really is. I think about, like, I'm looking at like the app development for my tech company. I'm like, am I going to get a new app developer? Thinking about that and really thinking about in this of like, I have the ability to deal with this. I've done it before. Am I anxious for the next few months? Yes. But I have done this before. I have the ability to deal with it. And so to kind of calm my anxiety a little bit versus it's like, oh my God, I can't do this. Like you said, and now I'm just maybe not making the decision versus saying like, I've done it before. Let me take a deep breath. Let me look at the time we have and go from there. And so that's a big thing is like, if you're anxious, like literally you're just worried that you don't have the skill set to deal with it, or you're making the problem a lot bigger. And ask yourself, what part of these 2 of these am I actually doing? Mm-hmm. And it might help out a little bit with quelling that anxiety.
Mm-hmm. I'm so sad that we are almost out of time because, like you said, we could go on. We'll talk about a part 2. But what do you want to leave us with? And then we're gonna let people know where we can buy the book. But what are kind of your closing statements?
I think my closing statement is kind of a few parts. The first thing is that we want to start teaching kids self-advocacy early. And that means it begins at home. If we want to teach them to self-advocate, that means that they have to be able to advocate with their parents. So the whole do as I say, not as I do, because I said so, right? You're being disrespectful. Kids should be seen but not heard. Like we've got to give them a chance to be really messy at home with self-advocacy. I think when it comes to parents, I think the thing I would leave you with is when you want to go and yell and scream at someone, ask them, what is the result you want from that? Is it you want the coach to fear you? Is it you want them to take on the emotional kind of burden that you've been feeling? Is you want them to immediately make the switches? Like, what is it you want if you're going to go cuss out a coach? Because I think a lot of people are like, I have this feeling and I need to act on it. And many times you don't. You don't. You can wait, but you just want them to feel what you're feeling. I think when it comes to administrators is understanding that the more proactive you can be about conflict, the easier some things will be. Meaning, and one of my podcasts, I talk with this woman, Kiera Pels, and she talks about having like communication templates, meaning when a parent's upset, they'll do text message, Snapchat, Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, smoke signal. A pigeon carrier will come in and drop a note to you, right? Like they'll do everything. So your job for your club is to say, this is the way we communicate, the only way. So and one of the templates she gives is like, hi, this is not the correct method to communicate. Please schedule a Calendly and I will delete this message. And you're doing it because you got to help train them what is the appropriate way to communicate. Mm-hmm. So I would say for administrators and coaches, you've got to train people the right way to communicate with you. And I think when it comes to referees is figure out your triple meter, what is too much, what is okay, because you don't want to insert yourself into the game because you feel like you have to have tight control of every aspect. Right? You don't need to make sure the bench sits there silent. That's not fair. Like, it's not fair to them. It's not fair that they just are like, oh, come on. And then we got to like, tweet, tweet. We can't do that. Right? We don't want the Pacers and the Pistons of the early 90s, right? We don't want the what was it? The Malice at the Palace. Yep. We don't want that. And if you're too young to know what I'm talking about, go Google Malice at the Palace. Go Google the Pistons Pacers game, what I'm talking about. Go do some dang research. We don't want that, but we also don't want to tightly control the game so much that kids aren't able to enjoy the experience, the emotionalness of it, the competitiveness of it. We don't want to take that away from it because it says in the book, if the bench says anything, we immediately card them. Baby, don't do that. Like, you then are making yourself the controller of the whole game, and that's not, people don't want to see that. That's been the best thing about the kind of doing away with the second, is that we're taking away that second touch. And the game, I feel like, is better for it because they can keep playing. Because honestly, if the set's that bad, ain't no one hitting that ball, right? Ain't no one hitting it. And so I think lastly for the kids is like, y'all just got to learn to self-advocate. It's hard, it's ugly, but you have to start doing it because you're not going to do it when it really, really matters if you're not going to do it with the small moments.
I love it. So your website is jenfrytalks.com.
Yep.
There's links to the book there. I'm on it right now. There's your TEDx talk is linked on here. Just go, everybody check it out. Jen, as you can tell from this, is wonderful. She's a wonderful advocate. And we're so excited that you were able to join us today.
I appreciate you, friends, even though you were in Snowmageddon.
I know. Fine. But no, we love it. And Sarah, Sharkey, anything?
Nothing for me.
Oh, Dr. Jen, thank you for joining us. We've not set a date or time or topic of the December Lunch and Learn, but we hope that all of our viewers will tune in again. And if you do have any questions for Dr. Jen or any of the Badger Region staff regarding this topic, feel free to email membership@badgervolleyball.org, or you can even just post it here on Facebook in the comments. We are happy to go back and kind of funnel through, because we know you're not all watching during the 11:30 hour here on November 11th. Happy Veterans Day, by the way, everyone. And we do want to just continue these conversations. As you know, Dr. Jen says, it's important to have the tough conversations, and we here at Badger Region will help continue to push that forward.
Thank you, friends.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.